Hello everybody and welcome back to another Mr. Farney Biology video here as we introduce our biochemistry unit here. This unit is kind of a shorter unit compared to our ecology unit that we spent time working through earlier in the first marking period here. Biochemistry takes us a little bit more into looking at the different things that allow our cells within our bodies to function and repair and kind of exist in the way that they are supposed to exist. So I'm going to kind of break up these videos in kind of smaller chunks because there's some new terminologies, there's some new things that we want to think about in each of these sections. So instead of having a couple relatively long videos, we're going to have some somewhat short videos here to kind of progress through the information that we want to know about biochemistry. Okay, so you see here in the table of contents, the majority of the time that we are going to spend in the biochemistry unit is going to be focused around this idea of macromolecules and different molecules and different elements and different things that make up our cells, comprise our cells, and like I said, allow them to function the way that they are supposed to. One of the things that I ask, and this should be, something that's common and not just limited to these slides, is that if you have any questions while watching these videos, bring them to class and we can discuss them in the beginning portion of the class, or while working on activities during the class period. You are more than welcome to flag me down and I can come over and we can have a discussion with either you or your lab table. Okay. So before we can get into this idea of macromolecules and how macromolecules work, we have to have a little understanding on what's going on with our buddy carbon. Okay, the element carbon. It plays a very, very important role, not only in biology, but in the world of chemistry as a whole. So next year, when you're going to be going into chemistry class, you're going to be spending a lot of time in looking at how carbon can bind with different elements. For our purpose, okay, we're going to kind of keep it simple with the different elements that we are looking at related to carbon. So carbon, we are carbon-based life forms, and since we have molecules inside of our body that binds with carbon, okay, we are an organic organism. We're an organic life form. So difference between a compound that is organic and a compound that is inorganic generally has to do with, is carbon present or is carbon not present? So if you look at the molecule on the right, we have one C and four H's, CH4. Okay, that molecule has carbon presence. That is an organic compound. Okay, and if you look at the picture here on the right hand side with the carbon in the middle and the H's surrounding it, you can see the little circles. Those circles represent uh, electrons, valence electrons that each of those elements have in the outer shell, okay, surrounding that specific element at the atomic level. Again, you'll get more into the specificity of that next year in chemistry. For our purposes, we just want to be aware that we have two non-metal elements here, carbon and hydrogen. When you have two non-metal elements, okay, that want to stick together, okay, they're going to create a bond in which they are sharing electrons with each other, and that bond is very easy to break. Okay, and that type of bond we refer to as a covalent bond. So if you look at the element, the little molecule on the right there, carbon, okay, in the middle, and has four hydrogens on the outside, okay, the carbon is sharing an electron with each one of those hydrogens, and each hydrogen is sharing one electron with that carbon. So they are sharing it. It's like two hands making a handshake, okay, holding together, creating that bond. Okay, if this was an inorganic compound, carbon would be absent. Okay, a very common inorganic compound that we are aware of is water, H2O, two hydrogens and an oxygen. Okay, similar bonds, similar covalent bonds, holding these atoms together, these elements together. Okay, but it is creating a different compound because of the absence in carbon. Okay, so covalent bonds, kind of a weaker bond, it's formed by the sharing of electrons. Okay, that being said, we can move into this idea of what makes up a macromolecule. Okay, Carbon's probably involved in some way. There's some type of bond going on there. What are some terminologies or things that I want to be aware of when it comes to this? Well, here are some first descriptor words that we can use to better describe what's going on with our macromolecules. Okay, the first word, monomer. Okay, mono means one. Okay, this is an individual building block of a larger molecule. Each one of our macromolecules are made up, or they are in themselves possibly made up of different monomers put together. Okay, and then if you have several monomers that assemble themselves in some way, okay, they can become a polymer. So polymer is a large molecule made from smaller molecules. Polymer is made of many monomers put together. And one of the things that we are looking at, specifically in our carbohydrate portion of the biochem lab that we started this week, okay, is this idea of combining sugars together, okay, combining sugars together. So we're combining specific monomers of carbohydrates, that's our monosaccharides, together through a process that is called dehydration synthesis. The word synthesis means formation, and the word dehydration means we are removing water. So this is a process, okay, in which we are removing water to create a larger molecule. We are dehydrating it. Okay? Up here at the very top of the screen, it says condensation reaction. Condensation, we are making water. When something is condensating, okay? Okay, it is having water form on its surface. So, a condensation reaction and dehydration synthesis, those are essentially the same thing. It's just two different words being used to describe the same thing. Okay, in dehydration synthesis, water is produced as a byproduct because you're removing a hydrogen and you are removing an oxygen and another hydrogen. Okay, and they are forming together because one is positive, one is negative, opposites attract, so that H and the OH will bind together, okay, creating an H2O inorganic water molecule through those covalent bonds that we discussed earlier. There's a little video embedded in the slide here that you can take a look at that will kind of discuss more about condensation reactions if you'd like to do so. Okay, you can do that on your own through this slideshow. Now, the opposite, let's say I have a larger molecule, like in the picture on the bottom left here, we have sucrose. So we've already combined glucose and fructose together through that dehydration synthesis. And maybe I wanted to break them apart. Maybe I wanted to separate them into their smaller monomers, the smaller monosaccharides. All I got to do is I take that sucrose molecule that I have, and in order to break them, I'm just going to add that water back in that was removed previously. So if I have sucrose, and I were to add that hydrogen and that OH molecule, the water, back into each of the original constituents, I get the original glucose and fructose in their normal forms. Hydrolysis is the opposite reaction of condensation reaction. It's similar that if we're thinking about photosynthesis and cellular respiration, they are going opposite directions. So respiration is the opposite of photosynthesis. Hydrolysis is the opposite of condensation reactions. If you are confused about that, please, please, please do not hesitate to reach out and we can kind of explain that a little further in class together. Okay? So, with that being said, before we get into the specifics of each individual macromolecule, I wanted to kind of end the video here. Like I said, shorter videos, easier to digest. Okay, so if you have any questions about the stuff that we covered in this specific video, please reach out. We can talk in class. If not, have a good rest of your day, and we'll check back to you next time. Bye bye.